Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the 7 Deadly Shadows. And we are talking about codependency today. Codependency, one of the questions that I got on Instagram was, is it really as common as people say? Like, that word is just thrown around so frequently. Is it that common? And the answer, which this normally isn't true, but the answer for codependency is yes. Codependency is the most common shadow that you see. And I'm going to explain 2 different types of codependency and 2 different types of codependence. So you're going to find this shadow somewhere in yourself. It exists. It's there. I can guarantee you have interacted with the shadow at some point. Any disclaimers that I want to mention? I don't think so. Today is going to be a lot lighter than some of the other calls that we're going to be having. So this is going to be more about relational dynamics and everything like that. So let me explain the mechanics of codependency first. So what is happening on an energetic level? Now, let's imagine that you have this cord that connects you to God, source, the universe, what have you. And when you are plugged in, you're blissed out, you're feeling amazing, you're in this really good spot, you're super receptive, you're on top of the world, everything is going so well, you're just juiced up, okay? So you're glowing, you're radiating. You're blissed out, you're blissed out, you're blissed out. And then something gets your attention. And you really want to go tend to it. It's really, really convincing and enchanting. And you want to go take care of it. You want to go touch it. You want to go over there. It's like 10 feet away. It won't be that big of a deal. It's just 10 feet away. Okay, so I'm going to unplug. And I'm going to run over there and I'm going to go tend to it. And then you get stuck. And it's like, wait, I'm trying to plug back in. No, I can't reach both at the same time. My wingspan isn't long enough, so I can't do both. I can't stay plugged in and do this at the same time. So you end up staying unplugged. And usually it doesn't take a second. It takes a long time to go tend to that thing. So then you've completely drained yourself of life force energy, and then it's bad news. It's game over. So the moment that you unplug, you're in trouble. And codependency makes you unplug a lot. The reason why this is the most common shadow is because there are so many things that are tempting you to unplug. All the time. Your friend is upset, you unplug. Something's going on in your family, you unplug. Now, there are 2 different types of codependency. So one is experiential codependency. Give me 1 second, hold on. My voice is almost back. Fully. We'll be there in a moment. Okay, so the 2 different types of codependency are, you have experiential codependency. This means things going on in the world are tempting you to unplug. So this would be like the trap of I'll be happy when I get this thing, when I get this relationship, when I get this money, when I get this house, then I'll be plugged in. No. I'm just going to hang out. This is really convincing. This is a really compelling thing for me to focus on. So I can't plug in yet. Once this other thing happens, then I'll plug in. And you see people chase this ghost for years. I was on the phone with a friend of mine yesterday. We were on the phone for like 6 hours. This is a very old relationship. We've known each other for like 10 years. And I have watched him make career move after career move after career move. He traveled the world. He did this. He's done everything. He has had so many different careers, and he's successful at everything he does. Like, it's not an issue of success. He's made tons of money. He owns a house. He can have whatever car he wants. Like, there's all of these things he's done. So now he's having this spiritual crisis because he has been chasing this, when I get, then I'll be. And now he's in his mid-30s saying, oh shit, nothing is satisfying. This isn't working anymore. And I told him, I said, you realize you're having a spiritual crisis. You need Jesus is basically what's going on here. You need to plug in. You need to plug in. You have to connect. That's why the first shadow is disconnection. Because then it's when this. If your life is made up of when this, you're fucked. All of these shadows come back to you are going to be in pain. That's why they're all shadows. You are going to be miserable. You are going to have a hard time. And codependency is one of the fastest ways to make yourself miserable. Codependency is essentially the disregard of self and connection. When connection is like that is the piece that you want to include in this. That's the medicine. That's why we started with disconnection, for this very conversation that we're having right now. So usually it's minor stuff that puts you in a state of experiential codependency, where it's, no, just a second. I'm just going to unplug for a second. That's how it gets you. Because getting back into connection is much harder than staying connected and staying feeling good. And there was even something yesterday going on that if I were regularly entertaining my codependency, I would have slipped out, and it would have been really difficult for me to connect again, because that actually takes work and effort. But I was already having a really good day. I'm like, absolutely not. I am not interrupting this for anything. I feel great. I'm just going to ride this for the rest of the day. There's no reason for me to abandon my connection to God. Think about how petty everything else is in comparison to that. Yeah, I'm going to abandon like the source of consciousness that is fueling me and all my creations, that is literally bringing me to life and animating me right now. Yeah, don't disconnect from that. It's not good. You're not going to feel good, I promise. So many things will tempt you. Many things will tempt you. Your bank account will tempt you. Your partner having a bad day after work will tempt you. Your mother-in-law will tempt you. The neighbor's barking dog will tempt you. The goal you haven't reached yet will tempt you. All of it will tempt you to disconnect and say, I just want to get this quick hit of negative emotion. No. Just let me bitch for a second. Let me just give me a minute. But you're not factoring in the plugging back in part. That's the hard part. Don't jump ship. Like that is the key to codependency, is do not jump ship. So you're not going to be perfect at this. The shadow is going to come up. You will jump ship. You will engage with things that don't make you feel good. You will get annoyed at the barking dog. I'm not saying that about this house. I love my neighbors. They're so quiet. Oh my God, I am like the most blessed woman on the face of the planet. This family, the kids are amazing. The couple over there is amazing. The dogs are so lazy and quiet. I love these people. Anyway, just as an example, things are going to tug at your attention. So codependency is actually the shadow that you're not going to be able to completely fortify. The best thing you're going to be able to do is have super consciousness about what you're doing when. That's the best you're going to be able to do with this particular shadow. I mean, sometimes you want to get in the mud, and that's fine. It's just know what you're doing. Know you're unplugging. Know you are disconnecting for a moment, and you have to decide the best thing. I'm wanting to say many things all at the same time. The best thing for you to do is ask yourself, is this worth it? That's the best question to ask. Is this worth it in this moment for me to entertain this? Some things are. Some things are where it's like, yes, I want to be a brat right now. And you totally can. But know what you're doing, and also prioritize getting connected as fast as you can when you come to. So experiential codependency is more of like the life circumstance stuff that is tempting you to unplug. Relational codependency, this is the stereotypical codependency of like wanting to people please, wanting to manage others, being obsessed with other people's problems. There's many different shades of codependency. So I've broken down the two different types of codependence into like codependent archetypes, we could say. So you have shapeshifters and managers. Shapeshifters will tell you whatever you want to hear. They just want to keep themselves safe. It's 100% selfish. Let's make no mistake. If you're a shapeshifter, you are selfish as fuck and you probably lie all the time. You are 100% called out right now. You cannot hide from me. So just eat it. Like accept it. Accept that you've probably been living your life that way. And it's also, shapeshifters are the ones who are willing to be dragged through the mud. So your tolerance for nonsense and bullshit is probably through the roof. Like you will just take it for a really, really, really long time until one day you're so full of bitterness and resentment that you completely explode from a lack of maintenance and considering yourself. Okay, I've seen so much of this happen. Okay, now managers are a little bit different, and it's very easy for codependency to get masked with a manager because you feel so righteous. Like, of course I'm right. They're being ridiculous. But what you're not factoring in is you're obsessed with their problems. You can't focus or feel good until they've fixed their stuff. You have a really hard time letting other people make a mess. And so all of your energy is actually dumped into another person and it's consuming you. So you often resent and get angry at the other person and want to like strangle them into behaving in the way that you want them to behave so you can feel good. Codependent people who are relationally codependent are selfish. You're not escaping it. There is no codependent who is selfless. It's not out there. There can be selfless aspects if you happen to admire that characteristic. I don't. But if you do, I'm sure that's out there. But when we're talking about this particular dynamic, codependency in relationships, it is all selfishly motivated. You're not helping. You are being selfish. You are trying to soothe and protect yourself. That is what you are doing. Make no mistake. Managers are highly vocal about their disapproval of others. And they often tell the same story again and again and again and again and again and again and again. It's that friend who's complaining about the behavior of others over and over, who you're like, oh my God, I need a break. This situation is exhausting me and I'm not even a part of it. You're probably talking to a manager. Now, managers grew up more than likely in a way, hold on, I'll get to this comment one second. In a way where their safety mechanism is, I'm going to do my best to control. So you see this a lot with like belligerent addict parents. I was a manager codependent for a long time, where I'm like, your life will be better if you listen to me, damn it. I know exactly what you need. And all of those things can be true. Like I totally could have been right. But that's not the point. The point is me unplugging is me screwing myself over. That's the point, is it ends up becoming self-sacrificial because of the disconnection piece. Okay. Hell yes, I love this realness, although I do feel the sting from being slapped across the face. Is it possible to be both shapeshifter and manager equally? It's more, I would ask yourself, did you have parents who were different that evoke a different part of you? Because it might just be when you're in contact with a particular type of person, they bring forward something from you. So they might bring forward that shapeshifter or bring forward that manager. That's probably what's going on. Both of my parents were so chaotic and out of control and reckless and dangerous. Like my parents are straight up dangerous. And so because of that, I only had one mode. It was to condemn, to, have to judge quickly for my safety. And then, bitch as much as I possibly could in the hopes that some adult around me would listen. I was a shapeshifter for my mom and a manager for my addict dad. Yeah. So you probably will find threads of different types of mommies and daddies in each person that are going to bring that forward. I'm definitely a manager. Can't wait to hear how to heal this. Did I already read that comment? Okay. So the healing part comes from, don't unplug. Don't unplug. Don't unplug, no matter how tempted you are. So this, okay, let me think for a second. There are two things. Remind me to tell you about my family member who's a manager. It relates to a question that I got on Instagram. The actual way to proactively, it's not even heal it, it's just for it to not be a problem anymore, is to not give in to temptation. So if someone is like crying about their problems, And you may feel the temptation to give unsolicited advice. It might be a really strong temptation. You might want to so bad your face puckers because you want to so bad. And you must keep your mouth shut to interrupt the pattern. That's like the first step, is to not give in to temptation. The piece of codependency is energetic conservation. You want to be conservative with your energy more than giving energy away and handing it out like candy. That's what you want to consider with codependency. So it's more about witnessing yourself have the codependency come up and not listen to it. I used to do this in my dating life, is whether or not my codependency was triggered was actually a actual deal breaker. If my codependency comes up within the first few dates, I can't date you. If I want to manage you, if I think that you're not doing your life all that well and I don't respect what you're doing, I cannot be in a relationship with you. That's dangerous for you, and I'm going to get burnt out and I'm going to hate you at the end of the day. Not good. So I once went on a date with this man, and he was telling me about what he was doing at work. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, like, God, I don't respect how you're handling this. I didn't say that out loud, but I absolutely thought it. And I remember just this palpable sensation of like, I don't trust you with how you're managing your work relationships, and I want to... bully is too strong of a word, but I want to, push you to do something different. That is such a dark side of me that is not sexy. It's not the vibe in a relationship. And so the man I'm dating now, I remember when we first started dating, it was the sexiest thing on the face of the planet, where I was like, oh my God, I don't want to manage him at all. I feel like he could manage my life if he had to. Like, he's got us both. Part of that is like the masculine essence, right? Masculine leadership. But it was such a relief of like, oh my God, thank God you have your life together. I don't want to manage you at all. I don't want to boss you around. And if you want to boss someone around, check. That manager codependency is probably lit up. This is what my coaching training is teaching. They call it a writing reflex, so people don't get attached to us. Hold your tongue. Damn, this is hard for managing codependence. Yes. That you have to interrupt the pattern first. Like before, otherwise a lot of the time it's too late. So either shut up or ask. Those are the two options that can help you with this, because you can ask, like, do you want my thoughts on this? That's not necessarily a bad thing. But then, a lot of the time you will just conserve more energy if it turns out that person just needed an ear all along and you didn't need to burn all that energy to begin with. I want to speak more to the shapeshifter codependent. I want to open it up to questions right now. I actually don't have a lot of notes on this, but ask me. Please prompt me with questions right now. I have a lot of questions here, but I want to make sure, what did I not explain about the shapeshifter codependent, or what would you like to know about that? I need some breadcrumbs so the messages can fully come through. Here we go. Okay. Lots of comments now. Thank you. Okay. Do you have any tips for pattern interrupting? So getting really, really good at observing your inner dialogue is one piece that is going to be really helpful. Because when that voice of like, I don't respect you, that at least for me, it sounds highly arrogant, right? That's just, I know I'm like, oh, she's awake. that part of me is here. She's co-pilot right now. Like I hear you. So you have to get good at differentiating the voices in your head because there's it's a frequency shift that you are hearing in your internal dialogue. If it's all dependent on the tone is going to reveal what's really going on. So that's the first piece. The second piece is get good at listening, not talking. Just practice listening. Some people might even think you're a little bit weird. They might, go on and on and on and actually expect you to respond. Don't. Just nod your head. Listen. And then I'm so bad at listening. Yeah. So just listen. And there's going to be discomfort. There's going to be pain. It's going to be like the compulsion to speak right now. Like you're going to have this energy swell within your body because there's all sorts of stuff. There's the habit that you're going against. There's your nervous system. There's this huge history of, okay, 1 second. I need to check my audio. Okay. So once again, your body's going to be full of energy. There's going to be a lot to override. So you just want to make sure that you're aware, like there's going to be a lot of things that I need to override. There's going to be a lot of things that feel like compulsions. It's like, oh my God, I can't help myself. You're going to have to help yourself. You're going to have to, it's going to take just willpower in the beginning. Or the other thing that you can do is you can involve other people in the process. So people that you're close to, you can say, I want to get better at listening, and I'm really trying this thing where I don't just chime in with, having something to say and giving unsolicited advice. I'm really trying to rework this within myself because it's freaking exhausting. So just make sure that you check me and remind me to ask first. Do you want my insight? Do you want to know my full thoughts, or do you just want someone to hold space? And so you can involve other people if that helps, if you're more of an accountability kind of person. I was a shapeshifter with my mother and a manager with my father. It took me years to cut my mother off and set boundaries with her. I know up until now I have lots of anger inside. I want to let it go, wondering how to shake it off completely. Well, the way that I would approach that is to look for the gift. So codependency, if we look at like, what is the gift of codependency? The shapeshifter codependency is you probably have a really big heart. You probably do want to give a lot to people. You probably are really sensitive to what other people want, what other people need, where other people are at emotionally. All of that stuff is good. And so if you can find some appreciation for the deep learning that has taken place, and also the fact that all of this has brought you back to reconnecting with God, universe, divine source, yourself, your soul, whatever you want to call it, there are many paths to making that happen. So for me, it was pretty straightforward. I craved healing at a really young age. Like I wanted to pursue it heavily, and It was just a natural extension of where I was going from a young age. Some people experience more of the crisis style revelation where they go through this extreme dark night of the soul, or they're diagnosed with some type of illness that causes this reconnection to occur. Some people have these family patterns where it's like it pushes them into reconnection. So if you can see that as a gift, then it can start to break up a little bit of the resentment. The second piece is you don't have to shake it, because more than likely, anytime you drift back into those memories, of course you're going to feel resentful. Of course you're going to feel angry. There are memories that I can go back into where it'll wake up all of this rage within me, but my job is to not constantly dip into those memories. It's like at a certain point, it doesn't matter how much therapy you've done. I've done a lot of therapy. I can still get myself worked up with those memories. So neutralize them as much as they can. Find as much appreciation as you can. And also understand they might just be super emotionally charged memories. Right? So it's balancing all of that. But I don't think there's any moment in time. One of the misconceptions about healing is that you're going to get this stamp of approval, this seal, like, oh, this is no longer an issue. That's not how it works. There's not something that ever is done. Like there's some times where I'll be in a state where I can look at something and it's actually no big deal. And then there's other days where I'll have a rough day and there will be a memory that makes me want to throw up. So this is fluid, and we're talking frequencies here. It's not black and white. It's not a test. It's not complete, incomplete. Right? It's always going to be incomplete, and it's always going to be dependent on what frequency are you in before. How to remember to do it. So going back to pattern interrupting. It's like you're probably already hypervigilant to some degree. It's just that you want to come back to focusing on your mind. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What is the internal dialogue that's happening right now? You want to have consciousness about the thoughts that are going on. You have to get out of autopilot first. And it's about focus. Are you listening to the voice in your head? Are you paying attention to what it's saying? Right? That's the piece. As a manager codependent, I love how I incorporate these archetypes and now we just like get it. As a manager codependent, I'm realizing I have many friends that trigger my manager response. Yes. So I wonder, does that mean I should phase out these friends and distance myself? Or is that just running away? Is it better if I push myself to stick with the friends and resist the urge to get involved? I would say there's probably going to be a mix of both, like, right? Like some people, it might just be like this friendship I actually don't want in my life. That's different. But it's like my best friend who we've been friends for like 14 years. She used to trigger my manager codependency all the time. My best friend, because she's closest to me. So it's like my heart is way more invested than with other people. We talk way more often than I do with any of my other friends. We're really involved in each other's lives in ways that other people aren't. So there's a lot of connection there. So naturally, there's going to be more triggers because there's more codependency, there's more intimacy. So my job is to not take the bait. And so I had to work on that a lot. She tempted me yesterday. She was having such a hard time, and I was like, I don't know. You're a big girl. Go regulate yourself. Like, I don't know what to say. That because me going there, I know how that goes, and I know how it plays out, and I know it doesn't go well, and I know it doesn't serve either of us. I know all of that. Me coming down from my magical cloud of connection where I'm having the best day ever and going and sitting in the mud with her was not the move yesterday. It was not. Because there was no, let me make the distinction here. This wasn't a crisis that she was going through. Like if her mom died and I'm the one person she wants to talk to because that happened, then when I'm looking back at myself, I want to say, yeah, I held space for her in that moment. That's different because that's what I want to do. That's what feels good to me. That is like high quality friendship that I want to experience. That's what I would want. I would want her to pick up the phone in that moment. Yesterday wasn't like that. It was like, go regulate yourself. You know how to do this. I'm not sitting and listening to you complain. Not doing it. It's not worth it. And also, there was no way that I could do that without unplugging. Holding space for someone's grief, I could probably stay plugged in, just radiate love, and like still do both. So that's where the distinction really comes into play. You don't have to dump every friend who triggers codependency. Not at all. You never need to do that. Because also keep in mind, if you're already dwelling in a frequency where you've got friends that do this, you're probably going to find this in most other friends, even if you were to totally throw out every single one and get a whole new friend group. So I would say it's good that this trigger is coming up now, right? Because it's this involuntary response where all of your systems kind of come online. And this is why I was getting questions about like, how do you remember how to do it? How do you interrupt the pattern? Because it feels involuntary. That's why I'm saying it's being triggered. So you just say, okay, I know I do this. I know I do this. I know who lights it up. I know when I shift into this mode. I know I want to just give the advice. I know that I want to manage. I know that I'm really uncomfortable when people are like doing something that I consider to be a terrible life choice. And you must have a stronger stomach for people making terrible life decisions. And it might sound crazy, but there is an element of, I guess you could say, healing this, that is, I love you, and I also don't ultimately care if you blow your life up. I may have different ideas on what's best for you, but you're going to do what you're going to do because you're a human. That's not a good long-term strategy because you do want to practice seeing the highest aspects in others. But getting good at detachment will help. Like detachment from whether or not someone makes really terrible decisions is a good exercise for you to do. Sometimes people can like strangle the idea of seeing the highest aspects in another person because they don't give enough time for reality to sync up with what they're wanting to see in another person. I'm hoping all of this makes sense. Okay. Super shifty liar over here. Ooh, I love when you say that. Just so you know, radical honesty like that, it's just like, Yes, like it's the most liberating thing ever. Ever. Okay. Shifting toward basking into that spotlight. Ouch, it burns. Would you recommend listening, developing a relationship with my inner Jessica? Your ego. I don't like her, but I know she is also me. Developing a relationship. I feel like everyone would benefit from creating a relationship with their ego. And for me, the more I make Jessica a caricature, the less threatening she is, right? So humor adds levity, seriousness adds weight. So when you're saying, I don't like her, you're adding weight. If you can be more playful and make her a caricature, maybe make it a little bit more funny for yourself, it won't be such a big deal. And then you get to speak from, I say this all the time. I'm like, what Jessica wants to say. It almost relieves myself of identifying with thought forms. And so it just becomes a fun game where you can play with the voice and not necessarily buy in, because then you'll get really good at distinguishing. Jessica wants to do this, but this is what I actually want, and these two things are at odds with each other. So your ego, if you are shape-shifting, it's like your ego is wanting to play it safe, but in reality, there's some fuck you energy that wants to come out. But I want to stay safe. I want to hide under a rock. I want to just curl up in a warm, cozy blanket and hide from the monsters in the closet. Okay, so that might be what's happening. And you can just toggle between these two pieces. I have a theory that underneath every shape-shifting codependent is a lot of anger. Because I've never seen a codependent of that variety who doesn't explode. Like sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's overwhelmment, sometimes it's burning relationships down. So I'm like, there's you've got rage in you, friend, that needs to be tended to. And so hiding, it's like, yes, okay, we can have fun with this. Okay, curl up in a blanket. Here's some hot cocoa. You can have some soft stuff, but after this, we need to rip open the closet and look at the monster. If I ever had kids, I don't know if I'll ever have kids, but if I do ever have kids, my solution for if they are afraid of monsters is, I've already walked myself through this. I'm like, that's not even a big deal. The trick is you want to scare the monsters first, and you won't have to deal with monsters. So you just rip open the closet, boo! And then they'll vanish into dust. And that's what you want to do with the shapeshifter part of you, is like you just have to open the closet and look at the monster, and then you'll be like, oh, that's like a puny little monster. It's not even that big of a deal. And we go back to exposure therapy. We go back to just exposing yourself to the scary thing. What, me? Angry? Yes, you angry, probably. So that is what I would recommend. I keep people except my kids at arm's length. But I've been alone for years. I've realized being lonely is something I created and don't know how to break this pattern, even though I know it's from childhood. So loneliness has been the easy choice for a long time, and I'm wanting something different. So acknowledge that the desire itself is the gift. That's number one. I'm also having this experience where it's like the first time in my life I've ever actually wanted friends. First time ever. I was so career driven that I didn't even care if I had friends. And I'm still kind of indifferent to friends, but there's a desire there where I'm like, oh, it would be cool to like have someone to hang out with. Or I'm so used to like going out to dinner by myself. It might be cool if someone went with me and I could like make jokes at dinner. This is all like, I just want to have someone to make jokes with. So if you just let the desire grow and you lean into it a little bit more, and then you say, I'm open and available to more coming my way, but just do it loosely. I'm just available. I'd like to see how this comes to be, and then let the magic pour in. That's what I would do. With the manager in me, I see her more easily than the shapeshifter, and have stopped her more easily. I have lost and cut off friendships because of it. I have been an asshole and telling them harsh truth, and they don't want to talk to me anymore, or I cut them off. Now I know I didn't handle this the best way. Now I know to just be more loving with them, to handle the situations when I want to fix a friend's life. Thank you for the feedback and advice. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes this was partly to satiate Jessica. My friends will tell you that I'll do things like this, where I'll say, you are free to make rotten choices. It's not going to go well and you're going to blow up your life, but you can do it. So I get to satisfy the codependency piece, but I'm also not resentful because I'm saying the quiet part out loud, where it's just like, you're free to do it. If you want to jump off a bridge, you go do it. I've said some things in some really crude ways even. Should I tell this story? Does it serve the collective for me to tell this story? No, I don't think it does, actually. It's just like unnecessarily rude. But the point is that you get to play with this. That's the big thing that I want to remind you all of. You get to play, you get to make jokes, and then even your friends might be like shocked. But it's like, well, there's no lie. What are you going to get angry about? The truth? So you can play with it. Yes, I'm a shapeshifter at times. Wait, let me make sure I got all these. Yeah. I'm such a shapeshifter at times, and I will have these anger crying outbursts. My brother, who is in recovery AA, looked at me one day doing that and was like, whoa, you need to fix that shit. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And this is why I tell people when I'm talking about codependency, I'm like, you are digging yourself a hole that is like 10 feet deep and a foot wide. And it is just going to be a disaster. You're going to have such a hard time. That makes me laugh. I joined late, so I don't know my archetype, but definitely I'm codependent. Okay, the archetypes are the manager or the shapeshifter. Managers are like very dominant, aggressive. You need to fix this or I'm going to be annoyed with you. And then shapeshifters are like, yes, I'll do anything that you ask me. Yes, no, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Those are the different archetypes. I'm a manager, and I also have this crazy rage. I actually call it the monster, but I express it. I can say terrible things that makes people hold their breath, but now I realize it starts with the manager within me getting triggered. Thank you. Yeah. So it's like you don't need to blow up your relationship. So when I'm being rude, my friends know I'm rude. Everyone knows I'm rude. that you can't have a friendship with me without finding my rudeness endearing. That is like a prerequisite. I'm not rude to the waiter. I'm not rude to the waiter. I have so much respect for the people that I come in contact with. But the closer you get to me, the more I show this to you and the more I'm going to want to tussle with you. And the more that I'm going to want to be free to talk a little bit of shit to you. So my family is from the East Coast. My dad's side of the family. And I have this, or I used to on Instagram, I would talk in this inflection that my entire family talks like this. They all have the ability to do this with this energy. I know you can feel it. And it doesn't matter what I'm talking about. If I bring this to you, you're going to feel it. My whole family can talk like that. And so you have to handle, my therapist called it New Yorkie. You have to handle that with me. And so we get to play with it. But, again, the fragile folk will not like me. And so you get to call in people who gel with you, who can handle you, who can play with you. So you can have all the monsters that you want. I've got plenty of them, but you have to understand how to work with them, how to play with them, how to express them in a way where it's not threatening, where people you've mastered the way to deliver it in a way that is creates more connection, fun, play, jokes. You've got to be available for more play, more jokes. Really interesting. This is actually the mini mastermind that I have coming up is about this. Like what to do with these shadow elements, what to do with your monsters. What do you do with your monsters? That's what we're going to be talking about in the mini mastermind. Okay, anyway, let me get back to these questions. I feel like I need a lot of practice managing my own anger. It is such a new sensation. It sneaks up on me and I have hurt people with this sudden rage. Okay, when someone says they have a bomb that's about to go off, like that sudden rage that you're describing, you need to evacuate. Leave. Run out of the house. Get out. Leave. You need the bomb to detonate somewhere else. That's number one. So if you're going to explode, you can even say it while you're running. I'm leaving for your safety. Okay. And then get out of the house or leave the room and go explode elsewhere. Then come back. So it depends on what level of nervous system activation you're really at. How aroused is your nervous system? And then you can make a judgment call of, can I tend to this now? Do I need to leave the room? Am I actually a threat to other people? Or something in between? Do you just need to ask for a little bit of time and space before you have this conversation? There's so many different ways to manage it, but the explosiveness, you have to exit because it is like a bomb that is going to detonate. And then you go do some I guess we could call it somatic work. Go dance, go shake, go do some hardcore exercise, do something, an intense breath work pattern. But you need to do something that will discharge the energy quickly. Remind you to tell us the story of your manager family member. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. There is, let me see. I have a whole list of questions. I think I'm both. I've started with shapeshifter and now I'm the manager. Yeah, you can have both for sure. I don't know if I don't have a lot of like personal experience being the shapeshifter. Because the one time, like, okay, I'll tell you the lip gloss story. I don't know. You can remind me if you're a podcast listener, if I've ever told the lip gloss story. It was a defining moment in my personality and in my life that changed me forever, and I will never forget it. So when I was 12, I had a friend her family had a lot of money, and she got me like a massive set of really nice lip glosses. Like really nice lip glosses. I was blown away. I was in love, like obsessed with these things. It was one of the best gifts I'd ever received from a friend. And I was living with my aunt at the time. Total bully, very abusive. And she saw these lip glosses, and they're nice, so she wanted some of them. And she asked me, she said, "Oh, can I have these colors?" And I got really quiet. I said no when I was 12. This woman punished me, iced me out, gave me silent treatment. She's like in her 30s punishing a 12-year-old over fucking lip gloss. Like, how psychotic. Judging. Jessica's judging to high hell. That was bullshit beyond anything I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And if you watch this, Auntie, you can go fuck yourself. I resent you for that. I swear to God, I would tell her that to her face. And I'm not afraid of her seeing this because I feel that strongly about this. So anyway, I was punished for weeks over this lip gloss. Like the craziest thing. It still baffles me that she did this to me. Then she said, "Well, you're too young to wear those colors anyway." Punished for weeks, silent treatment for weeks. And finally, to relieve myself of this punishment, I gave them to her. It is like, oh my God, I'm like cringing and dying inside. I am cringing and dying inside. I'm like, "Pass Sydney, no! Babysit me, no! Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't give her the lip glosses!" That is what comes up inside of me when I'm reflecting on this memory. And when I tell you this defining moment of my life, this changed me because now I will never, ever abandon myself like that. Ever. I will never go against what I want. I wish I had kept those lip glosses. I wish that I could look back and say that bitch didn't get what she wanted. I should have chosen myself. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. That is still in me. And this is why I said earlier, if you drift back to past memories, they will wake this up within you, and it's okay. Because I get to tell this story, and it's extremely valuable for many people who are listening to this. And that's it. I have never been so unapologetically selfish because of that moment. Because of the one time I shapeshifted, the one time that I'm sure there was some adaptation in there when I was little, like really little, but it quickly phased out when I got into being a preteen. And so that moment changed me where I was like, this is never worth it. Giving up what I want for someone who is throwing an adult tantrum is never worth it. They should suffer. They should be in pain. They shouldn't get what they want. And it actually created this really sadistic part of me that is like, I would let you burn before I ever gave you my lip glosses. Never again. And this is why I am impossible to manipulate. So if you're a shapeshifter, you are way more at risk of being manipulated than someone who refuses to give out lip glosses. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my theatrics. I think I've answered all of the questions. Okay. Petty me is like, I really hope she does watch this. She won't. She doesn't have time. But one of those events made me change to the manager. Yes. Yes. It depends on the intensity, but it's like when you witness something that just leaves a taste in your mouth that you never want to experience again, like it'll define your life. It'll be a defining moment. Okay, so the question was how to approach it when witnessing it between some of my family members. So codependency between family members. Okay, so I will answer that question. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell the story, and then I'll come back to this question. How to approach it when witnessing it between some of my family members. So an interesting thing when family members are being codependent, I have a cousin who's a manager, and her brother is a shapeshifter. I'm not blood related to her brother. It's like a half brother. So her brother is a shapeshifter, and they have a sister who is a drug addict felon. She's wanted in like 4 states, in and out of prison, has had all of these heroin addicted children because she was using during her pregnancies. A mess. Total mess. And she stole my cousin's identity for prescription medication. So my cousin's brother is like, give her a chance. She's changed. Meh. Okay, he's doing all that stuff. And she is like, no, you need to understand that this is why I don't want her in my life. And manage. You should be this way too. Okay, so they've got this whole codependency thing going on. And if I listen too much, now I'm going to get codependent. Now I'm going to want to manage. So this is why codependency shows up in family systems the way that it does. Because it turns into this giant like whirlpool where everyone gets sucked into codependency. And so I know myself. And for me, I could feel annoyance, irritation, resentment are very good indicators that codependency is bubbling. And so I could feel myself like getting annoyed by her telling me the story. So I just said very plainly, so why don't you stop talking to him about your sister? Oh my God, you can do that? You can stop talking? Yeah, you can. So this was a groundbreaking moment for her. She's like, oh, yeah, I can set a boundary. I never heard about that situation ever again. But the thing is, let's say I said that and she didn't listen. She didn't implement anything, all that. Well, then it would have been, I need to set a boundary with you around you talking to me about your brother. I can't hear this anymore. Either set a boundary with him or don't. I don't really care what you do, but I don't want to talk about this anymore. I would have said it softer, but that's generally it. That's the meat of it. You can, do whatever you want. I just don't want to talk about it because it's now draining my energy to talk about it. This is why we go back to energetic conservation. We go back to be conservative with your energy. It's precious. And is this going to pull you down off the fluffy cloud of pleasure or not? Oh, is it going to pull you down off the cloud of bliss to engage in this conversation? That was one of those things she was talking about where I was like, no, I don't want to hear it. So, because it's like I have addicts in my family. Straight up, this is so dark and I don't care. My attitude toward the addicts in my family are like, I'm ready for y'all to die. I don't care what you do. Overdose, get alcohol poisoning, have some seizures, whatever. Just, I don't care about you. My heart isn't in the mix. My patience for addicts is very low, and my patience for people who want to mess around and tolerate addicts is really low. I don't care. I don't care what you do with your life. Stay, go, overdose, don't, whatever. I don't want anything to do with you. So it's very, very cold. My heart is not in it. I understand. Yes, am an ice queen when it deals with addicts, but it's also hearing about addicts. I'll have that come up. So I don't go there because it wakes up this part of me that is just not loving. That's why you got to pump the brakes quickly. Another thing that has been very helpful for me is do I want to spend my life, the moments of my life, talking about this? Great question. Great question to ask. Because there are so many things that you don't want to spend time talking about. And if you frame it as, do I want to spend my life force energy and the time of my life talking about this? Or going out of my way for this person? Or doing this favor? Or coddling this person's emotions? Do I want to spend my life doing that? You will have a different relationship with time. And this has made me very, very quick and know when to drop a boundary, fast. So another friend was telling me about a friend who had a prison boyfriend. And I said, let me stop you right there. I cannot tell you how much I don't care. Let's talk about something else. And she was like, well, I was going to ask. Nope. I don't want to be asked anything about this. As soon as the word prison boyfriend, no. It's a no for me, dog. Let's stop. Let's stop while we're ahead. Okay? Because I know if I spend a moment talking about this, I'm going to resent you. I'm going to say, oh my God, I'm so inconvenienced by talking about this. I didn't have to talk about it because I'm in control. Because there's this red button on your phone that you can touch. So I have so many precious things that I could be doing right now. This isn't one of them. And if you start living that way, you'll be able to tell when to stop. If you start to feel like, oh, this is a waste of my time, or I'm angry that I'm being inconvenienced like this, well, there's these things called boundaries that you can implement. Okay. So that's when you would want to drop one of those. If you go back to the old stories and get back into that moment, that feeling, what is the quickest way to get plugged back in? Well, when I told the story for now, in this moment, it was for entertainment purposes, right? So it's like I didn't slip out of alignment. It was this entertainment factor that was coming through me. So that is just to put it into context for this example of what you just witnessed. Other times, what do I do? Other times when a memory comes up. Give me a second, because I had this happen the other night. I want to think about what I did. Mostly it has to do with self-talk. So it's, I recognize what's coming up. I'm like, oh, there's that memory. God, that makes me like sick to think about. And sometimes this will happen to me at night where I'll have like a really traumatic childhood memory come up. And like it used to like make me gag and vomit like all the time. It was really hard. And now the way I look at it is I'm disconnected. God's perspective on this is not the same, right? So this is not an area where I should be dwelling. There's nothing for me to do. It's a past memory. It's okay that this is coming up, but it is in the past. I can refocus myself. I can regulate myself. It's more about reminding myself of what I can do and that I don't have to get trapped in the memory. It's okay that it came up. I don't have to get trapped. And it's not, if you notice, I'm not saying, don't get trapped, don't get trapped. It's, I don't have to keep thinking about this. I don't have to obsess. I don't have to fall into the picture. I don't have to fall into the memory. I have control over this. I have plenty of tools, you see? So that'll allow me to create a little bit of space where I can shift out of it. Way back when, it was all nervous system regulation, and it was working with a therapist with a lot of somatic therapy training who could help me like move it around into a different part of my brain, basically, is what I was doing in therapy for a long time. But that's not how it is anymore. So you're going to have to identify for yourself. Like, is this something that is out of control where I actually need a professional who knows what they're doing to help me reposition this? Or is it a regulation issue? Or is it a self-talk issue? When you're pretty deep into healing, it's a self-talk game. Then it's just, I've got tools. Everything's going to be okay. I've been here before. It's okay. I've had this thought come up before. And it's been okay. I've had this come up many times, and like now it doesn't make me sick anymore, and it doesn't result in night terrors and like crying spells. It doesn't have such a tight grip on me anymore. And so you have to remind yourself of what you can do, and that'll keep you connected. At least that's been highly effective for me at this stage in my life. Okay, are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to shift into the questions from Instagram. Oh, I have another piece for shapeshifters really quick. Okay. Who here is afraid of someone being mad at them? Tell me. Are you afraid of people being annoyed at you? Okay. Let me tell you my perspective as someone who gets annoyed and is like a moody bitch, but is also conscious, right? Super self-aware, all of that good stuff. I'm like the type of person that you would probably want to have some type of exposure to for this reason that I'm about to tell you. I have all sorts of feelings, judgments, internal chatter, all sorts of stuff going on. And what I can say about when I'm mad or angry or whatever, there is a great deal of awareness of my involvement in it. So whenever I'm mad at someone, unless it's something serious, like seriously extreme, where it is going to potentially end the relationship, because that does happen. There are some things where that can happen, but a lot of you probably aren't doing that stuff. So for the minor, the benign things that you are probably afraid of, as a person who can get annoyed and is moody, I don't blame other people for when I'm angry or when I'm upset. So it's an interesting piece where it's like I can be mad at you and self-aware and understand my part and take radical responsibility for many of the pieces and still have those feelings and not have it mean anything at the same time. So the piece that I want to give you is just that all of those things can exist at the same time. Being angry, being mad, being frustrated with someone doesn't mean anything necessarily. It's just, there are these thought forms that are coming up. This is my involvement in it. And then, if there is something that I'm frustrated or annoyed about, then I just set a boundary. So again, what's my responsibility in this? Well, it's to set boundaries. And then I'll tell you what the boundary is, and then you know. And that's it. Now, of course, the only time or the only reason why you would probably be afraid is if you have someone who is afraid of conflict or doesn't know how to do it or communicate in conflict. That's when you get the loose cannon, right? There's that fragility element of all of this. So if you're dealing with someone who's super fragile, that's what makes you afraid. But someone who's good at setting boundaries, who can have all sorts of feelings or all sorts of judgments or all sorts of whatever, who can communicate their boundaries effectively, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just navigating this thing, just refining the relationship in little ways. That's all that's going to happen. There was another piece of this that I wanted to mention to you. Where is it? Hold on. Okay. So sometimes I've had family members who do want to blame me for their bad feelings. And a lot of the time, you'll notice in codependent family systems, particularly, that a lot of it comes from, you should just know that this upsets me. You should be telepathic. My rule is that if you have not told me, if I don't know this boundary exists, or if you straight up lied to me about something, I'm off the hook. If you told me something was fine when it wasn't, whose fault is that? That's you. That's your fault. So if you're a shapeshifter, let's say you're a shapeshifter and you lie to me, you tell me Oh, no, it's fine when it's not, and then you're upset at me, I'm going to tell you that's your fault. That's your problem. If you don't tell me what's going on and what's up, I'm not going to think there's anything wrong. You can't like have this huge thing and then post-mortem the conflict and expect me to cooperate with that. I'm not going to. Because you're in control of that. So you've got to tell me. I love you. I respect you. I want this relationship to work well. That's not going to do it. Maybe you want to do that with your mom, but you can't do that with me. So understand that your ability to do conflict well or in a way that creates more intimacy is going to often determine the openness in the communication and the quality of the relationship a lot of the time. And it's so interesting. I'll say one more piece about, I guess conflict. Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. The conflict, it's not really conflict, but the conflict that I experience in the relationship, the man I'm dating now, is so crazy because we're really good communicators and we take a lot of responsibility for our piece. We know our role in the dynamic, so we never attack each other. Sometimes I'll express, I'm hurt or whatever. That comes up from time to time, but it's not a fight. It's not blaming, shaming, pointing fingers. It's this is my piece. Okay, yeah, this is my piece too. And we keep our sides of the street really, really clean. And it's awesome. And we're not afraid of conflict. We're very comfortable with conflict. And so the more comfortable you are, the more it's neutral. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that it is interesting how at a certain point, it doesn't even feel like conflict anymore. Okay, your lipstick story was my wedding day, unfortunately, with my narcissistic mother had pulled a major tantrum because I had my first dance with my amazing aunt, her sister, that she had hated at that time. She failed to make it miserable for me to say the least. From you smell bad to horrible DJ music. And she asked us to drop her off at the airport on my wedding night, the next day, the day after my wedding night. She woke up the beast in me. It was a destination wedding in the middle of the mountains, so we had to be cordial with her until dropping her off at the airport. But it was a wake-up call to set a boundary and cut off the relationship to prioritize me. My boundary was I called her out on what she did. She pulled another tantrum when I said I needed her to acknowledge what she did. She said, "What about?" She did. She said, "What about me?" and hung up. And that was the end of the relationship. I am more than at peace with that being the end of the relationship. The last day as a shapeshifter. Yes. My fantasy. Let me tell you my fantasy for this is like the sadistic part of me that is, she's here. My fantasy is to have actual, like, huge burly men, security guards at my wedding. And if anyone is out of line, you're gone. Any adult tantruming, you're gone. You're not allowed to be here. You don't get to be a part of this day, and you will just with absolute humiliation be escorted out of the wedding. It is the dream. Like, I would love, please misbehave, watch what happens. I would have so much fun with it. Okay. What would you do if a family member, mom, tries to use an emerging medical condition as leverage to keep in touch more often? My mom definitely has that fragility shadow aspect. She has tried to guilt trip me for this, even though I know that conversation is likely to cause me to unplug and pick up some energetic garbage. A lot of people are going to hate me for this. You have to decide, how do I want to live this experience? So remember when I was saying, no, baby Sydney, don't do it. Don't give her the lip glosses. Okay, that is me reflecting on what I wish I would have done in that situation instead. And your job is to have enough foresight to be able to decide, what do I feel good about doing in this situation? Like what will my future self want me to have done in this situation? So, and you also ask yourself, is this worth coming off of the cloud? Because like I said, there are some situations where it might be worth it. And you have to decide what that is. I have no clue what it's going to be. And also, I might speak to the manipulation directly. I would say something, I'm giving you a loose translation of what I might say is like, I understand you're experiencing this health issue, and this is not giving you permission to violate boundaries. So again, like calling it out directly, like this does not mean I'm going to be in the hospital with you every single time you're there, right? So you get to decide the parameters of how much you're involved, whether it's through communication or physical time together or whatever it is that's going on. And so you can also like even give a proactive warning. Like if this turns into fighting, I'm not going to be available. Or you can give her, I can talk to you this many times per week, for this much time. Like you can define this however you want. But the piece that is going to have the biggest impact is, what would your future self want you to be doing now? How will you want to have gone through this? I think about this a lot with family members, like dying, being in the hospital, so on and so forth. I always think like I would not be that family member who would be in the room over functioning, having to sit in the hospital 24 hours a day. That might be true if it were my partner, right? If my spouse is in there, then I might actually want to do that. And then just take breaks to like shower myself. But for a lot of my family relationships, I wouldn't be that person. I would have to be super, super connected and aligned, and then bring that alignment into the hospital. And then I would be like this ray of sunshine. And then they would love when I come visit, because I'm this ray of sunshine that is walking into the hospital. I'm not like fatigued and cranky and disconnected and frustrated and annoyed, and like the fluorescent lights are painful for me. I'm not doing any of that stuff because I'm not in high expression of myself when I'm disconnected. So you have to decide. You have to decide, what is the priority? How do you want to live this? What is the best mix for you? And nobody can answer that question for you. But there's a lot of people who just think, it's your mother. You should be there. You should hold her hand every waking moment of every day. No, I will never tell you that. I will never encourage that. So Yeah, I can relate to that. Thank you. Yeah. So the answer is do what will enable you to feel your best and move through this experience, basically. Okay. I think I answered a lot of these. How to get your power back and not be codependent on others. Well, stay in your fluffy cloud of connection and bliss as much as you can, and don't give in to temptation of coming off of the cloud. How to stop being codependent? The fastest, most powerful way would be shut your mouth more often. Start there. Observe your thoughts. How to turn around the pattern as one person in it. We talked a lot about pattern interrupting. I think it would be all the same thing. All the same things that I was talking about earlier. Observe your thoughts, stop yourself, talk less, get good at listening, do something else with the nervous system energy, regulate yourself, know your triggers, right? So it's just like the getting really, really good at the basics and getting really, really good at self-observation. This one came up twice. The line between healthy relationship behavior and codependency. And then another question, navigating the limits between codependency and being really in a really close, healthy relationship. So it's once again a question of, in this relationship, is it worth it to come off of this cloud? And a lot of the time, if your partner is upset, that's not necessarily a reason to come off of the cloud. It's not a reason to unplug. There will be times when you will want to get much better at being this glowing, radiant ball of light and holding space for your partner at the same time. The trick to high levels of intimacy is unconditional love. Because if you can just bring love into the mix as often as you can, or let me say a couple different things. The first piece is understanding that in a long-term relationship, you cannot repeatedly abandon yourself. It will not work. You will get burnt out. You will not feel good. You will not be your best self. You will not be able to serve your partner through continually disregarding what you desire. So being codependent isn't an option for a long-term relationship. I mean, people do it, but they're not happy. I wouldn't say that. So abandoning yourself, out of the question. You can't do it. You must consider yourself even in long-term relationships. You must, if you want it to be high quality. So the first layer is, what do I want? What do I want to feel? How do I want to be? Who do I want to be? How much love can I bring here? The second thing to know is, I deeply care about you. I want the best for you. I love you to death. That acknowledgement and knowing is the second layer. The third layer, so it's not a matter of you're not considering them by considering yourself. It's you get to consider both people involved. The third dimension is what in this moment will liberate the most love or cultivate the most love. John Wineland talks about this all the time. It's about serving love itself. How can this create the most love in this relationship possible? So that is the third dimension, the third factor to consider for those long-term healthy relationship dynamics, or just relationships in general. But those are the three pieces. So you will stay out of codependency as long as you keep an eye on yourself and what you need and what is good for you. You must keep an eye on that. Otherwise, you're going to unplug immediately, because there's a way to achieve everything. Everything can be accommodated. You don't need to constantly disconnect just because you don't even need to disconnect for conflict. It can go sideways, but you don't need to. You can have a conversation. You can have a discussion, which will, if you're in alignment, turn into co-creation, where you're nothing but an energetic match for solutions, and it can go really well. That is a possible path that ends up opening up as a result. But for some of you, it might help to get into the mindset of, what does love itself want? That's like asking, what would God want here? Because God considers and loves everyone equally. I mean, how good was that? Okay, let's keep going. To be comfortable with others' discomfort without it affecting feelings of worthiness. I've revealed many parts of myself to all of you today. I've told you that I am obviously a very punishing person. I have this wicked, cruel streak within me. I have got my shadow is actually much larger than other people's. It has way more depth than other people's as well, only because I've ventured very, 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 very far into my own shadow, and so my shadow expansion has been really intense. After all of the things that I've said and everything that I've shown you today, am I unworthy of anything? No. The second thing I would say is go listen to my unworthiness podcast episode, because unworthiness is the boogeyman. You can't point to anything. You can't quantify it. You can't measure it. It literally is like trying to catch smoke. Unworthiness, if that word is coming out of your mouth, it is like the most abstract idea that makes no sense. So I call it the boogeyman for that reason. So go listen to that podcast episode and understand that there's 8 billion people on Earth. I don't know what the population is anymore, but there's 8 billion people on Earth. So you're telling me until every single person is happy, you're not worthy? There seems to be a flaw in that logic. Because the reality is you can't make anyone happy at all. So other people's discomfort, unless you are actively inflicting harm, you're not involved in other people's discomfort. You can trigger people, but then beyond that, it's like if you're deliberately like pushing someone's buttons, right? Then you are actively trying to cause harm. But even in the sense of like someone is being triggered, well, that is their trigger, whether or not you're conscious of that, or there's any type of agreement for you to consider that, that's a whole other conversation. That's how I've been programmed by my childhood. It's my job to fix it. Oh my God, aren't you tired? How tired are you? It's freaking exhausting. So anyway, it's not sustainable. The piece in all of this is people are uncomfortable all the time. Like, this is why this is the counterpart shadow to fragility. Because there are some people who are so wrapped up in that shadow that it's like, you can't do anything right. You can't say anything right. There's no way to fix it. There's no way to make them happy. There's nothing you can do. They're walking around with a tray of buttons for you to push and just waiting for you to fuck up. And until you are okay just leaning into be mad then. Be upset. There's nothing I can do. You've chosen to be upset. You've chosen this. You've chosen this. You've chosen this. That's how you start to develop a little bit more resilience to the idea of people being upset. But worthiness isn't even relevant. Everyone, even the worst people on earth, are worthy of God's love. Really think about that. And think about, well, the medicine would be God's love. Connection, right? We come back to this again and again and again for this reason. So it's not a worthiness issue, because even the most rotten people with the most traumatic childhoods who are doing the most terrible things, it's like they're not unworthy of love and well-being and kindness. It's like the disconnection has been so severe that it's actually become distorted and scary, and now it's leaking out in really dysfunctional ways. But this is not a worthiness issue. And also, being comfortable with other people's discomfort is like it's a muscle. That's the other thing I'll say. What does freedom from codependency look like? It looks like staying plugged in, staying on the cloud, just allowing yourself and giving yourself full permission to be up there, and having high discernment around, do I actively want to come off of this cloud? And knowing what knocks you off the cloud when it comes to codependency. So being very observant of yourself, knowing what lights you up, knowing what makes you annoyed, knowing when to not take the bait, having super consciousness around all of these things, and then just dominantly staying in your blissed out is staying in the pocket, staying in that love zone, staying in this deep, deep, deep alignment, and still being able to navigate relationships and environments, right? So something isn't going your way in the external world, well, still staying connected regardless, still being able to plug in regardless. That's the trick. So you don't want to be codependent with conditions, and you don't want to be codependent with people. And it just stay connected, because the hallmark of codependency is you take the bait and you unplug. That's what it really is. This was a meaty call. This was an hour and 45 minutes. Wait. Is that right? We started at 10:30, 11:30? Yeah, an hour and 45 minutes. Oh my God. Okay. So this, if you're like, we talked about Dom yesterday, but I will say the piece is for you if you feel like you want to go deeper in terms of like creating deliberately, then it would be Fabric of the Universe or Dom are like the counterparts to this lecture, I would say. So Dom, we talked about that a lot yesterday. This is about evoking what you want from who you want. So I just consider, because I know a lot of people have been interested in Dom, that tool is something that you want to also develop, being okay with other people's discomfort. You want to make sure that you still have like a groundedness before you start trying to evoke all of this stuff from other people. Because you can easily like get obsessed with that, and it can just become a full-time job. So you want to make sure that you're staying connected, that part isn't getting sacrificed. You want to keep yourself juiced up really, really satisfied, feeling really good. And then all of the other stuff, the transformations in your relationships get to be fun. It gets to be like, oh, I'm seeing more and more of this unfold in a way that I want. I'm steering the ship. I'm evoking what I want from who I want. That's when Dom blends in beautifully, but it will not override self-sacrifice. It won't override the habit to unplug. That's the piece that you want to keep in mind, because that's your work. That's what you do. The other thing that will be really helpful in Fabric of the Universe. So if you took that, I use the color spectrum. If you've you know what I mean, like the visual color spectrum, and it explains in depth why, in terms of the quantum field, when you're in a different zone, you get different aspects of people and different situations and different things. So that is more of the technical side that can play into codependency really well and give you an explanation for why I'm saying don't leave the cloud. Don't unplug. Fabric of the Universe is an excellent in-depth unpacking of why and how it works and how you can work with the quantum field. So the other thing, okay, you're interested in Dom. Okay, so the other thing about Dom that I want to mention is that there is a bundle, because I am running Sub in mid-August. So Sub is the counterpart to Dom. Dom is about power, control, having authority over what you create, right? It's the world submits to you is the energy of Dom. Sub is surrender, letting go, relaxation, letting life bring you to climax. That's the tagline for that one. So I do have a bundle for that available. If you were in Dom, I sent you a coupon. So just saying, that's available to you as well. I'll put all of the links in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube, or I'll email the links in the replay. If you're interested in shopping, looking for any of this, it's all available to you. My throat is totally done right now, but this has been such a good call. This has been so good. I'm so happy all of you were here. Your questions were super helpful. I appreciate you so much. This has been so much fun. And yeah, that's a wrap. Have a good day. I will talk to you later. And we will be doing the condemnation call on Monday. So I hope to see you then. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend. I will talk to you later.